Joining us today to celebrate the life of Whit Gibson. Welcome to Trinity MCC, to everybody that's in the building and those who are joining us online. We are coming together to remember, to reflect and to celebrate the life of Whit. And I was told this is a fun time. Yes. Each of us has a little bit of the tapestry of what was Whit. And so when you bring it all together, oh my gosh, there's a lot of it. He had an impact, obviously, on so many lives, and some of us will share our stories a little bit later on. Just know there will be an open time, so you can come up and share, and I'll tell you when that is. Not right now, but there is a time. And that time to share your memories. Some of us can't get up and speak on a microphone, and that's okay, because we're going to have some time afterwards where you can get to share memories as well. I want to remind you that tears are healing. And even though we laugh, we can also cry at the same time. And all of that is healing. It's good for our souls. And our memories uphold us in our times of grief and remembrance. So I'm going to thank David, who planned all of this, because, normally I meet with the family and I say, what is it you'd like? He said, here you are. So thank you, David. I pray that it's all that you want today in order to remember, to honor, and to celebrate Whit. So will you pray with me? God, we ask your Spirit to bless us as we share this time together, as we remember and we celebrate Whit. Help us to open our hearts to all that we need to experience today in fullness, so that we may move along this journey of grief. Help us to lift our heads and receive healing in our hearts. In your name I pray. Amen. Amen. Now, David's going to come up in a minute, but I get to go first because I'm here and I've got the microphone. So I want to share a little bit about Whit. See, when I arrived to pastor here 7.5 years ago, the one person that everybody was worried I wouldn't get on with was Whit. With his dry sense of humour, and he had, as we all know, a very unique way of being. And I actually feel very blessed that I got to work with him. I got to learn about him and his many ways and many things that he's done here and in the community. And he helped me at home. He actually helped me get to the point where I can now fix lights myself. Hoorah. I still can't get up on ladders. He used to send me out of rooms because I go, wait, please be careful, don't wobble, no, don't do that. He said, please leave the room. He and David had such a passion for this church. And if we needed to know something, he knew it. If we needed something fixed, he could fix it with David or on his own, he would fix it. And I know with both of them, they wanted this to be a safe space for so many people. And it really has been for 40 years. So when you look around the building, if there's a screw that's been fixed, it was probably Whit. The toilet pan, several times, has been fixed by Whit. But more than that, he brought his passion for the community to this place. And that, for me, spoke so many things into being. So I am so grateful. But now I hand over to David, who's going to reminisce some more with some more little secrets, I'm sure.
Okay. Everybody get comfortable. Kick off your shoes if you like. I am. Well, in a few minutes I'm going to read to you what I wrote actually before Whit died. And that's what Whit meant to me. Now, if I look like I'm going to have a major meltdown, I want to see some faces. I want to see some silly faces, angry faces if you want. Faces, you either smile or do something. So that'll help ground me, if you will, okay? Now, he read over what I was going to read today, and I asked him if he wanted to make any changes, and he said no. So, but I also have to admit that I might elaborate every now and again. And after I read this, I might tell some stories, but I might do some other. Excuse me. Okay. Independent.
Amen.
Stubborn.
I don't know about that part.
Okay. I have to admit that we're both probably fit that one. We used to tease one another because we're both Sagittarian. We said that was probably a Sagittarian characteristic. Oppositional. Insensitive. When problem solving, starting with a solution before defining the problem.
Amen.
And then if things ring a bell, you kind of identify with it. Whit was born on the 10th birthday of his older brother. A brother that he never knew because his brother died before he was born.
Wow.
Whit was the youngest sibling of three and the only boy in the family that survived. From my perspective, the family was somewhat dysfunctional. First, it was a nuclear family, then a single-parent family, then a blended family, and then a single-parent family again, and each wanted to be in charge, but nobody wanted to make a decision. That made all kinds of stop-and-go chaos. But I've always said that Whit lived at the corner of defiance and denial. Meanwhile, I lived in a world of fantasies. I think those were his survival tools that helped him to negotiate through life. Oh yes, I need to mention that, don't I? Whit was never in the closet. At age 18, he enlisted in the Navy, and he told them exactly who he was and what he was. And the military couldn't get his discharge papers ready quick enough. He wore his pride t-shirts all over town. He marched in pride parades. Well, the first march was actually down 34th Street to Westside Park. We couldn't get a parade permit. He joined the Vanguard, arrived at Westside Park, met face to face with the Ku Klux Klan. Now that might be a misnomer because they were wearing masks, so it was probably more like eye to eye. But didn't back down. 1993, he went to march in Washington. Well, actually, we both did, but marched in Washington for gay rights. Joined hands with ACT UP and to form a circle around the Capitol building and to protest the lack of funding for AIDS research. He drove the floats in gay parades. So I tell you this so you'll understand the irony of what happened when I brought his urn home. Now you have to understand that David stupidly decided to redecorate the house shortly after his passing. So the house the furniture is covered with tarps. There are painters redecorating walls. There's some guy there with a laser thing measuring up for carpet. So what did I do? I put his urn on the top shelf of the closet. Now, well, you don't want Whit in the way. But to preserve his dignity, however, I put his hat on top of it. With his pride pin.
There you go.
But when we met, he took a great risk. Faces.
Okay, come on! Hang in there! That's all good. Just rock it. All right. Take a breath.
But he opened his heart to me.
You're okay.
You're
You're okay.
He sold his house. He quit his job of 14 years, and he moved with me to Maryland while I finished my fellowship. The rest is history, as we say. Now, we've had many adventures together, camping, travel, supporting one another's talents and interests. See, I believe that for a relationship to thrive, it's incumbent upon each partner to accept the other's weaknesses.
Amen.
Flaws and all. And to never, ever use those imperfections as weapons against the other.
Amen.
Whit was my hero, and that he never mentioned my flaws. Faces.
There you go. You're doing great. You're doing great.
He was my confidant. I could share my innermost thoughts, no matter how outrageous or ridiculous. And he didn't always agree with me. Actually,
Did he
rarely
ever?
agreed with me. But he never ridiculed or discounted my values or my ideas. We partnered on many projects. We each had different skill sets, and we either succeeded together or we accepted defeat together. And that usually meant starting over. It didn't mean you abandoned it. Oh, please, no. Now, any project usually meant me going to the garage to retrieve some tool and coming back and saying, "Is this what you wanted?" "No, that's an Allen wrench. I need the box wrench." In the middle. And quite often it meant at least a half a dozen trips to Lowe's, because whatever thingamajig was supposed to be attached into the whatchamajig was at least a micromillimeter different. That was our projects mostly. I relied on him to make sure that everything in my life ran smoothly. Now that means making sure that the car ran, the plumbing works, the irrigation system and the thermostat were programmed correctly. But neither of us could master smartphones or computers beyond the basics. I don't know what's going to happen there. And some things I was never to touch. Never to touch. Visitors often at our house often wondered about why the light switches had electrical tape over them. Well, since his passing, I took the electrical tape off of one switch, flipped it, and all the security lights came on. So I thought, okay, you turn the switch the other direction and they'll go off. No. They came on brighter. I don't know. I put the tape back on. I just waited after that. Come in, come in. Early on, I was charmed and awed by Whit's musical talent. He sang with the Tampa Oratorio Society, church choirs, the Gainesville Men's Chorus, the Gainesville Community Chorus, with whom he toured and sang in Washington, D.C., and in various European venues, including large cathedrals and town squares. In one season, he left his voice to Voices Rising. He also put himself out there and did a number of roles in community theater and musicals. Now, he could remember all of his lines for any part that he was playing on stage. He could remember the lyrics for any song in the musical. He could remember the choreography for all of the dance steps. He could not recall names. Now, some people thought that meant that he was getting senile or had Alzheimer's. Not the case. For 45 years that I knew him, he couldn't recall the names of friends and relatives. And one day, he was talking on the phone and telling somebody about me, and looked at me and said, "What's his name?" So quite frequently, I would say at least several times a day, we went through this charade. He could tell me everything about that person, where they worked, where we met them, and it could have been years ago, but he could not remember the names. My job then was supposed to be to figure out who he was talking about. Before we met, Whit sang in the choir at Tampa MCC. When we began seeing each other, a weekend date always ended attending evening services at MCC. The very first time that Whit took me there, he arranged to sing a solo. Mansion Over the Hilltop, his favorite hymn, and his signature hymn. Jonathan, you're on.
Been louder than any of us. We're going to share with you now it's a family photo album. It's a family of choice and blended and family, church family. It's all of that. Just an album of different photos that will bring back many memories for many of you. And some of you won't know some of the photos, but I'm sure that you'll get by the reactions how much they mean. Oh, no, it's the cutest you ever looked. he wasn't Dolly. Yeah, pick him up.
Where's Whit?
Y'all don't know if the guy in the white suit's a stripper.
Always keep hair warm when they're hot hair.
One would think he never got to any sleep.
What's that word Santa had? Oh, grand. Sweet.
There's some really beautiful. There were some pictures in there that made me think of, like, especially the one with Nita and Whit. It's like, what? That was a look that came across his face very often. Because he couldn't understand my English. He kept saying, speak English. I said, I am. What do you mean a plug? That's a receptacle. Now is a time where we can share our memories. I know Barb's going to head us off, but if you want to come up when Barb's finished and share your thoughts and memories, please do.
If I stand behind this,
you can't see me. So we'll start by introducing myself. I'm Barb Peterson, and I have been a member of this church for over 20 years, and we have shared a number of wonderful things with Whit and David and my son, my spouse, my son, but he doesn't know. I want to really start with this, from The Sound of Music. How do you catch a moonbeam like Maria? Well, you have to ask yourself instead, how do you catch a moonbeam just like Whit? And that really is who he was and who he will always be. Now, when I asked Whit, how did he ever meet David, he paused for just a moment, and he said, well, we were together in a gathering, and when we got ready to go home, I just followed him home. And I stayed there for 45 years. Well, they were 4 happy years, and I'm really grateful. Now, one of Whit's loves was the Magic Kingdom. And he loved to go there all the time. And he just thought that that was the most wonderful place in the world. And so I asked, so what is your favorite at the haunted house? Or what is your favorite there? And he said, well, it's the haunted house and the Bear Jamboree, and where are we going to eat? He loved the colors, all of the colors of the rainbow, and especially the colors at Disney. He really brought the child out of him when he was there.
Oh, that's for sure.
It's really hard to follow him. That was not a treat. Whit loved his church, and he devoted hours and hours and extra so that everything was right here. And you heard Catherine mention, and also David, about the plumbing and the squeaks and all of the other things that might have happened while you remembered them. But one of the others always was he loved animals. But nobody here noticed that you didn't mention the other little critters that periodically visited this building.
Right.
The snakes. We had a little snake. And you can move people out of this church faster than people. But it isn't just limited to just snakes. He also was kind of crazy about mice. And we had a real deluge of mice at one time. And he worked on that little trap and this trap, and he got it all done. But the other thing that I want to share with you is that because he loved the animals, he never hurt them. Well, maybe the trap, but other than that, nothing. But what he did do was you could be standing out here talking to a friend, and all of a sudden Whit would come in dangling this snake and wanting to introduce you. And that is absolutely what it was. I often think that Whit should, with all of the talents that he had, should have just had his own business. And that business would have been, hey, Whit, over here. Because that is what it was. With Whit, no matter what you asked, he always would do it. It's really hard sometimes to just talk about your memories when so many of us are really feeling that we are still with you in our hearts and our minds. Now, one person behind me mentioned all about Whit singing, but I'm going to come in just a little bit longer because he not only loved the regular music, but the show tunes. And he could sing every one of them, and he knew them all. And he just had a wonderful time singing with them and also with dancing. And he really wanted more dances here at the church. And we should be sorry for him because we wanted them too. But we will get them again, and when we do, we will honor him there. Now, camping was another thing. They had this camper, and then they had another camper, and then they tried another camper. I don't know who had to have the idea, but anyway, that's how it went. And he really loved nature. And he loved all the beautiful things in the world. And he really loved just being there and wandering around. Except for when they were camping at various places. But Whit would get in the water around the area. No, that's wrong. David would get around the water and be in the water. Whit wouldn't go. But eventually, Whit decided that he could have a kayak just like David's. And so he bought one. And one day, he took his little kayak out and he looked all around the world, and as Whit might do, kind of looking all around. And all of a sudden, he realized that he paused and he looked one more time and he was circled, entirely circled by manatees. Now, how many would get a look like that? It was absolutely a fabulous time. Now, I could go on for a long time, but I have one more. And this one I think is a current one that we all can laugh. Last year, on one of the evenings at our church, suddenly there was a real loud sound out in the yard. And you know us, we're all curious and we rush right out. It was a large sinkhole, and I'm sure most of you have heard about it. Now, David is inquisitive. Oh no, Whit is inquisitive. David is way back here. That was just my tongue. All right, so Whit is there, and he starts moving forward.
Oh.
And then you hear him say, Whit, move back. Whit paid no attention.
Wait, now move back.
That's right. Now, that's my line. And that is true. He did this at least 3 times, and then finally, and I am told, I was not there that night, but I am told that it was a much louder noise, and it said, Whit Gibson, get back here! And he just...
He was right on that very edge of it.
As the dirt was still crumbling.
Yes!
And we're not going to invite you to go out there and look today either, because we'll get nervous. But one of the things that I just want to say again to all of you, how do you control a moonbeam like Whit? You just love him and remember your memories.
That is so true. He really was. He was right on the edge. David and I were on this side of like, please stop it, please stop. David, stop it, please. And he was the reason that we bought the what do you call this? Light room thingies, just in case he fell in and we could wake him up. Would anybody else like to share memories? Thank you.
I don't think I need the microphone.
It helps for those online.
Oh.
It does help.
Just raise it up.
Raise. It's a
My name is Alan Rogers. I'm currently in Ocala, but I was here at MCC in Gainesville through most of the 80s. I first met David and Whit probably in 1981, 1982, when a group of about 6 or 8 folks started showing up at St. Luke's MCC in Jacksonville. We didn't know each other. I've always said, well, that was God's plan, and that was God's time for MCC in Gainesville. And those 6 or 8 folks ultimately became part of the founding group of MCC Gainesville at that time. I remember riding with David and Whit some of those times when we were still going to Jacksonville, and they told me the story of how they had met, and I would say it was probably a love at first sight story. And based on what I've heard here today, I think that probably was true. They met and they were together from then forward. I've always admired the love and commitment and dedication in that relationship, and the great example that it was to this community. One of my good memories about David and Whit was the first time that I visited their home in Alachua. I don't know if David will remember this, But just before we got to the entrance to their neighborhood, there was a large field of several acres of huge sunflowers in bloom. And I thought, wow, this is a great sign. I feel like I'm in Kansas. But when I got to Whit David's house, I knew I wasn't in Kansas anymore. But I still have that memory of that field. Is that field still there, David?
It's all hayfield now.
It's all hayfield. Another great memory of Whit was, of course, in the early days, the church in Gainesville met at the Unitarian Universalist building in Gainesville, and Whit was always there to keep our music program going. I think for me, the one phrase that would sum up Whit for me was, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant."
Yes.
As Nadine's coming up, I want to remind you that next week we celebrate the 40th anniversary of Trinity NCC Gainesville. It's 11 o'clock next Saturday.
40th anniversary.
40th anniversary. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's getting old,
Aren't we all?
but Whit loved him, and he loved Georgia. And I was sitting here thinking of what I could say, besides the fact that his love of animals and my love of singing. And one of them goes back many years. I don't know, somewhere about 18 years ago, I think. And there was a tree by the shed out here. And there were a group of us on Saturday morning that used to get together from 8 to 12. Well, the tree was leaning and needed to come down. So finally I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, now I've just cut 32 trees on my property in Keystone. And I'm thinking they're not leaving this tree right. But it's guys doing it, you know. Marcia Miller comes charging out the door and she goes, "There's not enough lesbians running this job." Because I think it was just the only women were, it was, Barb Hawes wasn't here that day. I think it was Donnie and myself, and that was it. So, but one of the other things is Whit was dying. I would take Davey up, and I would sit and talk to David, and Whit would listen when he felt like it. And finally, one afternoon he said, "I think Davey needs to go for a walk." And I thought, guess that's my cue to leave. So Davey and I left. But Davey really enjoyed going, and he would just basically sit and look, which is quite unusual because usually he's right up in the bed. So, but we'll miss Whit.
Yes.
Oh, this is going to be bad.
This is gonna be hard. Just seeing his picture up there made me cry. So,
Faces.
yeah, faces, there we go, perfect, yes, I love the hat. I love that hat. So, I haven't been involved with the church since I started helping build the church. And I've never been a churchgoer, and I warned them of that before I started. But I was introduced to Barbara Hawes through divine intervention, and was called here by God, and I feel that in my heart truly. But I don't have to have God in my life and a church to go to have God in my life. But Barbara and I met, and when we first met, I met her at the Trinity MCC at wherever it was they were having services at, down on across from Mill Hopper. Unitarian. And I happened to, the only seat open in the house was next to Barbara Hawes. And it was really dark in the room and everything, and for whatever reason, I just started blubbering, and I was just crying. And after the service was over, I got myself straightened out, and Barbara stopped me, and she says, "What's your name?" And I told her, Judy. And she says, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a building contractor." And she says, "You may be the answer to my prayers." And I said, "That's highly unlikely." and she says, "I would like to talk with you, if you don't mind, about a church that we're trying to build for this congregation." I said, "Sure, I'd be glad to talk to you about it." So we met and we talked. And I said, "Well, I really have to see where you're at." So she brought me out here. Well, it was a great big steel oven. It was round, and that was it. You know, there wasn't anything else in here. They didn't know what to do with it after that. They had already been working on the property and on the building for probably 2 years when I came on board. And it was a great big steel building, and you walked in and felt like you were in an oven in the summertime. So, because there was no insulation or anything. So we talked and everything. And as we were coming through the area, she said, there was a woman working on the front wall. I don't remember her name. And Whit was working on this wall. And so she told me that the woman on the front wall had been pretty much running the job, you know, for the most part as best she could. And she said, "But now the guy on the back wall, his name is Whit, and he's a character. Now he's going to probably seem a little gruff, but he doesn't mean anything mean. He's just, you know, straightforward with you." I was like, "Okay, I'm cool with that." So she introduces me there. I come back here, and she introduces me to Whit, and she says, "Whit, this is Judy, and she's going to help us get this building built." And he says, "We'll see about that." Well, I'll believe it when it happens. And I said, "Okay, well, doesn't look like it's anything really major. And then if I say I'll do it, I'll do it." And he says, "We'll see." So instantly we were under challenge, you know. So, but that's how he operated, you know. He didn't pull strings. He didn't pull anything back. He was straightforward with you. So Barbara and I met on several occasions. We designed the building, we got it going good and everything like that. Dave and Whit were here every Saturday. Don D was here every Saturday. Both the Barbs were here every Saturday. We worked for a year and a half with volunteers. This whole building was built with nothing but volunteers from the church. And we spent a year and a half on Saturdays, me and my Sheba, which was my Sheba dog, my little German Shepherd. And she would pick her spot somewhere so she could see me no matter where I was in the building. You know? And and we had a group that brought in food and everything like that. So we made it fun, and we were doing it for our purpose. And so a year and a half later, we had our service that we opened the doors, and the preacher cut the ribbon across there. And we had a service just before Christmas, I believe it was. But during this, there were several events, a couple of events. I'm going to tell you 3 events that I found most interesting with Whit. He was very dedicated, and he and Barbara, they were like this, you know. If there was an assignment, then those 2 would work it out, or her and Don D would work it out. And I spent a lot of time pointing because I was teaching people how to operate a hammer, you know. Yeah. So, when they poured the slab for this building, they only built one bathroom, and we needed two. And so there was plumbing for the toilet, the drain, right there behind that closet door, but there wasn't another bathroom. So Whit broke out a hammer and chisel and started tearing up the concrete because we knew where the drain line was. He started pounding on that concrete, and he broke it away and everything, and then he got a hole big enough to where he could get his body into it, and he started digging sand out. And he dug it all the way across, and I got pictures of his butt sticking out from under the concrete, and his feet hanging up in the concrete. And he was digging, and he'd stack it out in piles, and somebody would take it away, so to just get it out of the way, because we had to fill the hole back up. And he did. He dug it all the way out, and then he went to the other side, busted a hole in the concrete so that we could put a new drain line in. So that was a funny time when everybody would come in and look at Whit's butt sticking out of the ground. Do you remember that? You seem like you wanted to say something about that.
David was working back here. He did not know what was going on. Until he came out, and there is Whit's butt. And the rest of him is tunneled under.
Yeah, he's all the way under. Talk about the roto-rooter.
Part of my life has been, Whit, get out of there.
Talk about your roto-rooter, man. You did that. Okay. The next big challenge, after we got all of this framed in and everything like that, we built the wall because the drywall was going to come down to it. And Whit fought me for weeks. There's no way we can bend drywall. There's just no way that drywall is going to bend on those walls. I said, Whit, just believe me, trust me, have faith. It's going to bend. He says, there's just no way you're going to bend that drywall. So I said, you just hide and watch and it'll happen. So we got some scaffolding, and we had 2 sets of scaffolding set up. And I actually had the worst sinus infection and tonsillitis ever. I was sick as a dog. And we had stacks of drywall on each side of the room. And we had like 6 people on each set of scaffolding. And what we would have to do is have 4 on the top, and they would be pushing on their backs up against the drywall to get it to bend, and then we'd have 2 of them screw them off the whole time. And Whit was like, I'd have never believed that. You mean you actually had a wrong thought? And so it actually became a competition. My dad was on this side, leading this side, which was a miracle all in itself for him to allow himself to be around gay people. Because it was all he could do was accept me. But now he's hanging out with my gay church, and helping build on my gay church. So that was a miracle in itself. And my mom and dad actually put the tile in the bathrooms on the wall. And so that in itself was a miracle that they actually participated and helped out as well. But by the end of the day, this team, I believe, came out first, and they made it all the way down to the door. And this one came right behind them at about the same point. But then they all finished it up the next weekend. But, Whit was like, I'm just not believing it. You could have never told me. And I said, I know, I told you only 30 times it would work. So that was the other thing. So This was 40 years ago. I was fresh out of college, kind of. I was in my 20s, so young 20. I just turned 60. So I was in my early 20s when we were building this. And I was kind of butch. I'm still pretty butch, but you know, I'm soft butch now. Softer butch. But I was pretty butch back in the day. And all you see me doing is I'd have my tool belt on me and my hammer and everything like that. Well, when she was talking about his love for animals, he did. He loved all the animals. He would move spiders around and take them to safe places, and he would do all this, that, and another thing. Well, one day I had my tool belt on, and I was pushing my arm beside myself, and I felt something prickly, and I looked down, and you know, the banana spiders around here, they get this big. I'm not exaggerating. They're really this big. And so I see this spider on my leg, and I'm like, ah! You know, and he's like, just. And he comes up to me, and he goes like this. It's like, God, you're such a Nelly. And he takes that spider, and he puts it on a tree, and says, don't worry, it won't hurt you. He says, thank you, you saved my life. So, those are my 4 favorite memories of Whit, and I hope you all enjoyed them. Thank you.
Oh my God, First of all, I wanted to say that I was so blessed in 2001 when my partner Butch passed, that Whit and David were so good to me back then. They took me camping, which I'd never done in my whole life, and ended up enjoying it. Barbara would camp next door, so it was 5 of us. And the one thing I did that would annoy the dickens out of Whit was they were sleeping at night in the back bedroom, and I was on the couch in the living room kitchen, and the clock drove me crazy. It was a battery-operated clock that just so noisy to me when I was sleeping. So I would take it down off the wall and take the battery up to my house. And every morning Whit would get up, wonder what time it was, and where the clock was on the calendar. But, one of my favorite memories of Whit was one of the camping trips, and it was cooler in the morning, and he had on long pants, and I thought, well, midway through the day, it got warm, and lo and behold, there was a zipper in the middle of the pants that he unzipped and turned into shorts, and then put the remainder of the pants in his truck. And for some reason, I never forgot. I've still never seen a pair of pants like that. You remember? Did you still have them?
No. Which is very surprising because he never threw anything like that.
Anyway, that's all.
Juan,
Hola, ¿qué tal?
bien, bien.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. Do I need to translate? No.
Oh, Lord. So, I can't remember when exactly it was that I met Whit. It just seems ages ago. But it had to have been when I joined the Gainesville Choir. And he was a bass. but he had a wide range, and I used to tell him he could just sing the phone book because he would fill in for baritones and altos and everybody else in between. And I just love that about him. And he was just amazing. He had a beautiful voice. And then I started coming here with Tom, and we just fell in love with the place. And we would sit somewhere towards the back, and Whit was usually around that area somewhere with David. And one day, Catherine is having the sermon, and Whit just mouthed off something, made a comment, and Catherine just answered matter-of-factly and kept going back. And this happened a couple of times, and Tom and I just looked at each other. These people talk. Who's the guy next to him? He's very patient. That's David, he's quiet. So we finished the service, and then on the way home, he said, "Wait to come back next week and see what happens." And what I love about that is it speaks to the kind of community that is here, how open they are and how engaging. And to me, Whit was a prime example of that. And to me, he is a reverent irreverence. And that's my favorite memory. Thank you.
Nobody else has one. I have a quick one. So I've been coming here about as long as Catherine has been here, just coincidentally. And this must have been several years ago, and I didn't know Whit very well. It was maybe at a work day, or maybe it was a potluck Sunday, I don't remember. But I was telling him about how when I was a child, I loved to sing and dance, and what I really wanted to do was to sing and dance on Broadway. And he said to me, "Didn't we all?"
I want to remind you of something you didn't say about Whit that I think is very important. I'm native white. I first came to Trinity in 1999, and Whit was one of the first people I met. And I really came to love the guy. Whit was Whit, no matter what. You didn't have to wonder, well, what is he thinking, what he told you. And if you saw that picture that came up, and that was Whit and I squaring off. Whit told you what he thought, and I told him what I thought. And we got along really well. But one of the things I think David didn't mention about Whit was that he had one of the biggest, greatest, loving, giving hearts of anyone I've ever met.
Amen.
He would do anything for you. And you didn't have to wonder where he stood, like Judy told us. He'd tell you, but you knew exactly where you stood with Whit. And he was a very loving guy with a great big heart.
This is kind of quiet with me coming back. So I didn't want to miss the name. And what I remembered about Whit was when we would sing the hymns, he would sing the loudest in the church. Yes. And we were kind of transitioning and starting to sing a little contemporary gospel. And when we sang those songs, he sat back there like a prune and he never said a word. But as soon as we sang another hymn, he was always the loudest in the church because he really loved the old gospel hymns. And I thought that was very special. And then the last thing I wanted to say was that we kind of had to warm up to each other because he never really talked to me very much. And he never said my name. But I remember one day we was out on the yard and we were cleaning up. And he actually called me Sandra. And that let me know that Whit had finally accepted me and that we were building a relationship. And it was a great relationship after that because then he would start talking to me a little bit here and there, every now and then. And it was just to me, and I loved it when he joined the choir because, I mean, and it was a miracle that we really got him to join the choir again because he wasn't trying to come up there and sing those songs that we were singing. But when we had the Christmas programs and everything, he came up and he joined the choir and he sang with us. And I will tell you, he said he had such a beautiful voice. And he always sang the bass was, and it was just awesome. So I am truly going to miss him, and I miss him even now. So thank you, Dean.
My name is Lil, and I'm married to David's younger brother. We've been married for 51 years, so I've been a member of the family for quite a while. And I think the thing is that I've heard just all the sweet stories that you told about Whit and your relationship with him. I never had the luxury of having gotten to know Whit on an ongoing basis because we've never been a close family. We've been a very distant family. When I say that, I mean it very literally. We live in Maine and they live in Florida, so we didn't really get to see each other nearly as often as we'd like to. But I do know that, and I can't even remember when I first met Whit either. It just seems like he's always been there. So, when he's been in the family for 45 years, and of course I've been in a little bit longer than him. But, I do know that it's been very, very encouraging to my heart to hear all of your stories about Whit's sense of humor because it's taken me a lot of years. I always thought, well, gee, maybe it's just me. but I think that, we never saw each other a lot, but whenever I saw him, it was just such a wonderful, just a wonderful time of just being with him and spending what time God gave us together. And when we left, we always were, sad to, say goodbye. But then a year or 2, 3 years later, when we saw each other again, it was just like, we just saw each other yesterday. So, Whit was, he was a very, very unique, very dear person. And just like you, I think one of the things I loved most about him was his love for animals because we're quite the animal lovers ourselves. So, but it's been really special to us to be able to hear your stories about Whit and David. Because David is, he's just, from the moment I met him, I just always loved him. He was my brother, and so it's been a wonderful journey for me over the last 50-some years to be part of this family.
You're going to meet all of my family.
Yeah, I guess I ought to get up here and say something too. I'm his brother, his youngest brother, and I had a twin sister, but she's passed. But I think, like my wife said, we didn't get to really be around him a lot, but when we were, it was a wonderful time. I remember they came up actually on a cruise, I think, to Maine one time, and I don't know how David got him on a boat, knowing his feelings about cruises.
And seasickness.
And seasickness, yes. But we met him in Bar Harbor, and we spent the day with them there, and it was just a wonderful time. But we would call on special occasions, and Christmas and stuff like that, and I always liked to make sure that I called and invited him up during the winter months when we were having a nor'easter or something. And I just couldn't seem to get him to want to come. And I couldn't understand that, because we were having a great time. The snow was coming down hard. It was maybe 20 below zero. But it was a wonderful day. But we did love it.
So what's your angel wings?
I'll wear them later. But this is for Whit. I will tell y'all, so 7 years ago I came here, and it was around Pride, and we had to put up banners. Okay? So I told the vicar, I said, I'll do whatever needs to be done. And she said, well, a guy named Whit will be here. Okay?
Well, when you say banners, just explain.
The banners are the Pride Month. We put banners up, the rainbow colors.
They're the length of the room.
The length of the room. Now, Whit, you know, I'm a nice person. And we're on the ladder now. This man, I'll tell you. So he started climbing up the ladder. I'm like, ooh. He's a holding the ladder. And I'm like, okay, I'm holding the ladder, but you're swinging. Now this was the first thing. And I'm like, oh, we're going to be here all day. So we get up there. He starts doing it. He tells me exactly what he's doing. So when you do it next year, this is exactly the way you're going to do it. So I try to do it. He's like, no, that's not the way we're going to do it. Well, all I don't know how I'm going to catch this man when he falls. So that's my introduction to Whit. The vicar asked, how did it go yesterday? I said, I don't know about this man, but he's crazy. I said, I don't know his personality. I don't know who he is, but I'm never going to get along with this man. Never going to get along with this man. She said, it takes time. It ain't going to be my time. But that's the beginning of it. Where do I want to go with this? So anyway, one of the things that I love about Whit, it took some time, because very opinionated, he comes right in your face, and I'm not used to that, you know. And but let's go back to the sinkhole. Now I know all of us do that, but Whit would get mad at me. You know, when Whit, now, he said, I heard everything, I heard everybody say all this, I'm going back there. Now, probably not with my accent, mind you. But I'm going back there, and I know what I'm doing. And I finally decided, you got to get around Whit. You got to get around who's talking. So I said, Whit, when we're back there, I said, you're getting close. I know what I'm doing. Okay. I said, but Whit, if you fall in, it's my heart that's going to hurt. Because I'm going to look down at you. And when you down there, I ain't coming down there. And I said, I'm going to laugh my ass off. He looked at me. He didn't say nothing. Now that's priceless there. But as I got to know Whit and stuff, he taught me a lot. He in his gentle way, in my hard way of not wanting to listen, if you really listen to Whit, you step back, you gave him his time, and you were there present with him, he was a wealth of knowledge. Yes. When you look at the books, I love history, so I looked at the books and looked at all of it. Anything I need to know, he would tell me. You know, he'll tell you. And I saw a lot of Whit's ass too. Every time we were on the ladder. Then the vicar, every time the vicar goes somewhere, there's something happens in this house. And then the air condition went. So he said, Cecil, we got to get up on the ladder again. I said, okay, Whit, let me get up there. And he said, no, I'm going to get up there. So he gets up there and he's like, and then I'm just hold the ladder. And then I said, I'm holding your ass. And he gets up there and then he gets down, you know. But I think I was able to go over the last week, and I loved, it was about a week and a half. David had asked us to come over, and my roommate Donnie came, and we were going to move some furniture for the hospital bed. And so I let them two talk and say that. So I sat at Whit's bedside, and we started laughing and joking and carrying on. And one of the things is that then they came back, oh, we finished. I said, so I'm just the entertainment for Whit. So Whit, his name was proper, Whit, because he did have a sense of humor. You just gotta see it. And his wittiness was that. And I remember telling them, we talked about it, and he says, I'm ready. And I said, all I remember saying, and I always say this, and it was just very good to be with him. And then I said, you know what? On this plane, you're going to close your eyes, and on the next one, you're going to open up, and it's just, you're going to hear the words, well done, son, well done. Thanks.
There's more to it. Cecil to help me move furniture. He says, no problem, I'll be right there. I'll call Donnie and pick him up work, and he'll be right there. Donnie and I moved the furniture.
I know.
He brought the glitter to entertain with.
I did.
You ever going to tell the Golden Boy?
Oh, well, I don't know it all, but I'm hot and sweaty now. Okay, go ahead.
This is PD, and you need to understand.
You need to understand this so you understand all the gold that we're going to bring out a little bit later. As I said, it's PD. I mean, it's prior to David, but I've heard this story a number of times, and so I will try to relate it as accurately as it happened. Prior to David, Whit was going to attend a Halloween party that was at a bar in Tampa. And he tried to find a costume that would be appropriate. And he finally settled on going as the Hollywood Oscar. So he covered his body from head to toe with gold body paint, except the bikini. Because somebody had told him that if you use that body paint, then your pores can't breathe and it could be lethal. So he left a little part that was not covered with body paint. And somebody had made him a gold lame cape to wear over all of this. Now he also tells me that the paint never dried. So they had to have this cape in order to make a grand entrance, that was the court that we gave people back then. Still is? Sure. So he made his grand entrance, and somebody asked, well, does the paint go all the way down? Whereupon he just pulled down the little corner there to show that there was really some bare skin there that wasn't painted. And about that point, he was arrested by the vice for indecent exposure. So he spent the night in jail, covered in gold body paint that wouldn't dry. And everything he touched gold. The next morning, he went before the judge. In gold body paint and a gold lame cape. As the story was being revealed to the judge got so many giggles that he finally turned his chair around to the back wall so he could maintain his own dignity while he was giggling with his back to the bar. Well, he dismissed the case. However, one of the DJs in Tampa got a hold of the story and printed a license plate to go on the front of his car that said Golden Boy. And Golden Boy was his nickname for quite some time. So in our after party today, gold is the theme. Is this still on? Okay. Let me find the proper page. Whit and I have had the good fortune to experience the support and compassion of the faces of an amazing community. And I want to express my gratitude for the many acts of kindness that poured forth during the past several months.
Hang in there. You're okay. Yeah.
Thank you. To Cecil for giving a new mantra, 1 hour at a time. That was very helpful. Thank you. To Steve, who has traveled this path before me and has shared his wisdom and his understanding. To Ryan, who recognized the stress of a 24/7 caregiver and offered many, many hours of patient yoga instruction and one bodacious neck and back massage to bring some semblance of peace in my life. And to Steve and Ryan both for the lunches that provided a few precious moments of R&R. Kathy and Sue, who are in Alaska at the moment, for their offers of help and a quart of potato leek soup, which Whit enjoyed, and I got one spoonful. And for the hours that they sat with him to give me some relief. To the Lindas for their caring and empathy, for their nutritional support. And I gave you that book back, didn't I? Thank you. Margaret and Deb for their concern and hugs. Barbara Peterson and Barbara Grimes for always being there, even though they had many of their own challenges with which to cope. And Barbara Peterson baked the brownies for today.
They're in my office.
It was a family affair.
They may be released.
To Pamela and Kathy for visiting and sitting with Whit when I needed a break. And for Lincoln who brought communion, actually it was last Sunday, and for taking, and well, I rather shamelessly suggested that he makes good bread. I would really like to have a loaf of his bread. And he brought me this enormous, you wouldn't believe that bread that he brought. It was wonderful. Thank you. I hope you're watching that one. Catherine, for her visits, always on her days off, and support on a regular basis for her ministry and follow-up phone calls, and for the delicious desserts and dishes that she brought every week, directly from her own kitchen. And Carol, our neighbor and community hospice volunteer, for all of her support and for being there at the crucial moment too. And to so many more whose thoughts and concerns and well wishes that I carried back to it each Sunday. There were so many of them, I had to make a list so I could remember who to tell. Thank you. But I believe that there is the divine in our willingness to help alleviate the suffering of others. And I truly see the divine in you. Now, all that being said, let's get on with the fun. The following, we're going to have to clear everybody. Are we going to give instructions for that?
I will in my different. I got one bit after you. You gave me a few minutes after you.
So. Oh, okay. I will. Okay.
Sounds dangerous.
It's amazing when communities come together and support each other, and that is just hearing how many people have been there and been able to support you. I hope that happens for all of us when we need it. Part of compassion and that one of the things I saw in Whit was, when we used to drive out to the give out the quilts. Compassion in a church is not just about the people that are sat in the building. Compassion is about the community and needs, and he showed that so often. So I wanted to share one quick story before we finish, because you're going to laugh at this. So we lived on acreage, and I rang David and Whit and said, I think I found something that's really important, and it might be a cellar. It might lead down to something. And I don't know what to do. So, do you know who I can call to get them out to see if this is like a World Heritage thing or what is it? And Whit said, "Oh, I've got to come and have a look at this." So he drags David over, and they come over and they start digging. So please don't dig, Whit. Please don't dig, because if this is heritage stuff, like you don't want to be digging, you might disrupt it. It's it might be really important. He said, just out of my way, bring me a shovel. So he started digging out around. It was a bed frame. I was so pleased that he did dig up. And I didn't call anybody for this World Heritage site that was on the front,
It's an Navajo Indian bed frame,
Well, beautiful memories, and I know there are so many more that we'll get to share in a minute. I hope that you are going to stay, David. I invite you to stay for Greek yogurt. Is that frozen yogurt? Frozen yogurt. Sorry, I said this to somebody the other day that was English. I said, we're having frozen yogurt, and they went, "Oh, you better say yogurt." So we're having frozen yogurt and brownies afterwards, and plenty of time to just chat and share our memories. But we do need your help.
So we would like to put some tables up in the middle, and there are some people who are going to be doing that. So if people ask you to move to one side or another, please be gentle with them while they just rearrange the room so that we can have some more fun together. So as we continue our social time, we know Whit's physical presence isn't here, but oh my gosh, his legacy is. And his legacy will never leave us as long as we continue to speak his name. So I pray that you will keep saying his name. If you wish to honor him, David has asked that any donations made be made to the Trinity MCC Endowment Fund, and there is a basket at the back of church. I'm just going to ask you to pray with me as we draw this part to a close. Loving God, we give thanks and rejoice in the hard work, the fun, and the fellowship that we have shared about Whit. May we leave this space with gratitude in our hearts and a spirit to continue his legacy in each of our lives. Not just today because we're smiling and we're together, but in the weeks and months to come. May we make this much of a difference in other people's lives to honor him. In your name I pray. Amen. Amen. I'm going to get Jonathan to play some music, and I'm going to ask those who have been invited to bring tables out to bring them out, and let's keep partying.
What do we want to do with the chairs?